Republican candidate Paul Morgan is joining us to talk about his vision for Hawaii. He's a Republican candidate who grew up in Kailua Kona who lived in Kailua Kona since 2013. He grew up in Mississippi before becoming a running back at Vanderbilt University's football team, where he graduated. He has worked in child protective services in Pittsburgh, adult probation in Dallas, and is now a consultant specializing in development of small minority, veteran, and women-owned businesses, according to Civil Beat. And he joins us now live. Good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning, Grace.
Thanks
for
having
me
here.
Thank you for having us.
I wanted to start off by asking what I've asked all the candidates. Why do you want to lead the state?
Well, it came down to the decision of, do I want to be led by the current administration that's leading us? And that was a very passionate no, and what could I do about it? So, talking with family and friends and people who know me best to ask that question, yeah, they believed in me. And from that point, we created a plan, talked to a few more people, and started to run for governor, prepare a plan, and organize a campaign.
When you say the current administration, are you talking about Governor Ige, or you mean the Democratic Party? Because Governor Ige cannot run anymore. He's termed out.
Well, it's a combination of both, right? It all goes together. There hadn't been a different perspective on how the government, the state of Hawaii should be managed. So taking this opportunity to look at what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, and put together a plan that I believe and our team believes that will work in the best interest of Hawaii.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you're a former National Guard member?
Yes, I was a combat medic in the National Guard.
And I wanted to ask you, given your military background, what you think should be done with the Red Hill fuel tanks that have gotten so much attention lately?
I'm glad you asked that question. So we all know that water is essential to life. So with that being said, I think it was $100 million was recently appropriated from Congress to help with that. And if that's not enough, then at some point that conversation needs to be held with the president so we can decommission these tanks, drain them, and actually fix what's going on in the state with this water at Red Hill.
How do you feel about the military's relationship with our state? Because some feel that they have taken over land for too long, and given what has been happening with Red Hill lately, it's become a little more contentious.
Well, I think if you're an invited guest, or not so much some people would think of an invited guest, it comes down to being a good steward of land and also working with relationships with people in the community. So having that relationship is important, and it's kind of like what's going on right now. If things are being done the way they should be, then those steps to either file lawsuits or have those conversations from the president on down so that we can resolve these issues. And there's more than one way, as they say, to skin a cat. So if it can't be done diplomatically, then of course it goes to the level of dealing with the president directly. And if that doesn't resolve it, whatever needs to be done from a state's perspective to protect the interests of the people.
Something that has dominated our headlines for a couple of years now, COVID, right? And looking at your website, it says that if you are elected as governor, you would want to reverse all mandates. And I wanted to ask you what exactly you meant by that.
So that's simply reversing the mandates of mandatory mask, the vaccination cards, of having to go into the restaurants, the passports, and just simply giving people a choice between their medical providers to do what they need to do, right? So if a business owner chooses to have people who come into their restaurant to wear masks, then that's his prerogative. And if a person who is in a restaurant and they don't require masks, then that's their prerogative to wear a mask. So simply reversing those mandates. Hawaii, I believe, is one of only 5 states that has mandates in place. So just reversing the mandates.
We are an island state. How would you propose to make sure that our public health system is maintained if you were to drop all those mandates, if there was another surge, say?
Of course, it's communication and relationships, and from a top-down perspective, working with a plan that actually works, that's feasible, scaling it out to the point of milestones that need to be hit, on benchmarks that need to be hit in order to make sure that it's rolled out properly. Kind of like what we experienced with this COVID thing, but from a perspective of doing what needs to be done in a way that it actually works. That's feasible.
As I'm sure you're aware, Hawaii is unique in that it has a school system that's statewide instead of the smaller districts that you might have in a lot of places on the mainland. And I wanted to ask you, as far as the COVID and the reversal of the mandates, would you drop all the mandates for schools as well?
Right, and that goes back to choice too, right? So parents, just like with the education of their children, having the opportunity to choose if they want their children to wear masks versus not wearing masks. We were told in the beginning with some scientific data that school is one of the safest place for kids. So the choice to wear a mask for children, that should also be made up with the parents and the guardians of the children.
Another issue that faces pretty much everyone who lives in this state, Mr. Morgan, is affordable housing and just really the cost of living in Hawaii. And I wanted to see, if you're elected as governor, if you have a plan in order to help that.
Yes, we do, and starting top down, meaning there are some things that we can do from the state, from the governor's office, from that perspective, in order to lower the overhead of actually the infrastructure cost of building affordable homes. There are programs that actually exist currently in the state that we just haven't taken advantage of. So being able to leverage those programs to lower that overhead of land development down to the infrastructure and the development of the actual homes. So we haven't taken as a state advantage of those opportunities.
Could you maybe give me a specific example of one of those programs? Because I think part of the reason costs are so high in Hawaii is because we have to ship in so much of the supplies.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at building products, materials that are efficient, that are portable to the state of Hawaii, in order to build that's not traditional, like with wood and some of those different things. So consider some of those renewable projects or products that are available to build affordable housing, and then utilizing public-private resources to do from pushing off land, dirt, state land, federal lands, and just holding the trust accountable to what needs to be done to get people in housing on, say, Kamehameha Schools or Bishop Estates on trust land.
How do you feel as far as tourism? Because tourism has become such a big issue because of the pandemic, where we saw a huge drop in the numbers of people coming to visit us, and then also knowing that it's such a big part of our economy. How do you propose to balance that for our future?
So tourism is a tremendous resource for the state of Hawaii, and we learned through COVID that we can't depend on tourism. So as part of what we're preparing to ramp up is creating industry around the issues of the state of Hawaii. And from affordable housing to healthcare, education, technology, we have a lot of businesses that are currently in the state that simply need, from the technical assistance perspective to the injection of the capital, in order to be able to promote their businesses statewide. So we have that influx of finances that actually come back into the state of Hawaii.
How would you, as governor, though, help to uphold those when you're also proposing to reduce government spending at the same time?
So it's leveraging the federal programs. It's utilizing nonprofits in a way that they haven't been leveraged before to provide that technical assistance to businesses. A part of our plan too for Hawaii First is to what we're proposing is the Hawaii Economic Recovery Tax, which is $25 for every tourist who comes to the state of Hawaii 2 years and older. That'll be a source of revenue, and then that funding will be used to create low interest loans and matching grants for those small businesses to help them grow.
So you would propose to tax every visitor who comes to Hawaii $25 to support this?
Well, that's a part of it, right?
Okay.
So the build out of the plan is simply looking at the different departments and what is excess spending to be able to reel all of these things back in. Of course, we're for lower overhead, lower taxes for the state. So just being able to look at what's going on and how we're spending in the state.
Something that a lot of people have criticized our state for is that it's difficult to have a business here, particularly a small business. And isn't that something that you wanted to make easier for small businesses?
Absolutely. So, having that process, or we've been promoting what's called Hawaii Made at some of our events, where we're just talking to small businesses about what resources do they actually need in order to thrive. So a lot of those things are consistent across businesses. So providing that technical assistance, again, leveraging state and federal resources in order to make available for small businesses to thrive in Hawaii.
Got to ask you while you're here about the 30-meter telescope. I understand that you live on Hawaii Island, and of course this is a divisive issue wherever you are in our state. Do you support the construction of TMT?
Grace, I'm glad you asked me that question. I actually oppose the construction of TMT along with the rail, right? I'm pretty sure there are several other projects that we can actually put funding towards that are more of a important and immediate need for the state of Hawaii. Namely, teachers need a pay raise. They hadn't had a pay raise in who knows how long. And being able to repurpose funding for some of the more important issues like homelessness and some of the other things that are more of a priority.
And you said you oppose rail as well?
Well, as far as the oversight and the spending, in my mind, it's kind of like having a house being built and the contractor tells you it's going to cost you a certain amount and they come back and tell you the price is going to be double. Who would want to go through that? So looking at actually auditing this process of how we got to a type of steel that's not good for Hawaii, I scratch my head on that. So just auditing that entire process to figure out where that went wrong, derailed, in order to fix it, get it back on track.
All right, Paul Morgan is a Republican candidate running for governor for the state of Hawaii. We thank you for your time here on Sunrise.
Thank you for having me, Grace Lee.
We'll be right back.